Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How's everything over there?
Pretty good. It's very hot today.
Okay,
Mm.
here it's about the same, but you might have known that we have some problems here in Germany right now with so much rain and floods and so on.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, it's not so easy, but here in my place we are safe. Thanks God.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. So, welcome to CWC. I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about your personal journey to becoming a professional musician and your upcoming album of works for strings. For people in the audience who might not be familiar with your work, would you mind introducing yourself?
With pleasure. My name is Friedemann Eichhorn. I'm a violinist and I teach as well here at the Hochschule für Musik Franz Liszt in Weimar. And I'm also the artistic director of Kronberg Academy, which is an institution for young, very gifted string players near Frankfurt. And most of all, also, I'm family father. I have three children, and my wife. We make our home here in Weimar, and I enjoy my time playing, teaching, discovering music, and I'm especially into music of the 20th and 21st century.
Mhm. What's the last piece that you practiced?
Actually, at the moment, I'm preparing a new violin concerto that was just written for me by the Turkish pianist and composer Fasil Say, which is a wonderful musician. And he wrote this violin concerto for me, which will be premiered next May in 2022 in Berlin with the Concerthaus Orchester, conducted by Maestro Christoph Eschenbach. And I'm really looking forward to that because this is a piece of music that I fell in love with already. And here I'm reading the score and working on the violin before actually I go on vacation, which will happen in around 10 days.
Exciting. Well, congrats on the upcoming release of your Works for Strings album. Aside from practicing your new works, how does it feel to see this album being released? And what do you hope that audiences take away from it?
It's always wonderful if the CD finally is released because there's so much work until this baby is then there. You practice the music, you play it over many years. You often play it in concerts, and then finally you record it, and that's always a special atmosphere also in the studio. And then of course you help in the whole process. I mean, the program notes, or in this CD, it was a sort of interview with all my colleagues that are also on this CD and with the composer. And so you have to bring in photographs and so on. So it's a long story until the CD is there, and then it's finally wonderful. I think it just must feel the same to a writer when suddenly or finally the book is printed and is there. I will not listen to this CD so much myself because I rarely listen to my own recordings, only in the process when it's edited and when I'm in the studio, of course, and maybe some years later I will take an ear and listen to it again, and then it's a wonderful memory, of course. But most important is I believe in the composer, Burkhard Egdorf, and I believe in this music. And some of this music, or actually all the music, was written for myself and my dear friends that are also playing on this CD. So it's music dedicated to us, and it's a special pleasure then, of course, to record it and to try to bring justice to the composer and also. work together with the composer and help the composer also to bring his music, his baby, then to earth.
Absolutely. As you might remember, I'm a composer myself, and working with musicians is just amazing. As much as I love, sitting in my little black room and writing things out, it's so much better when I get to hand it over to such amazing musicians that bring it to life.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I just love to work with composers, and of course I love the romantics. I love the Baroque, and Bach is of course my hero. I mean, for whom isn't he? Mozart, of course. But it's so wonderful to work with composers that are still alive, and I would love to ask maybe the same questions to some Mr. Beethoven or Mr. Brahms. I would have so many questions. They cannot answer it. I have to discover and to answer them myself, reading the score or reading about the music and talking to my colleagues and in former times with my teachers, discussing it and so on. And here you have the source right there. You have the composer. You can ask him, what did you really think here in this place? And what is the emotion that you want to transmit here? Or may I give you even an idea how I could imagine that this piece here or this part would really sound even better. And so it's a wonderful discourse always with living composers, and that's what I love in our profession.
Collaboration is the name of the game. As you spoke about earlier, in the album booklet that listeners have access to on the Paladino website, you guys had a big interview with you guys and the composers about this album coming together. One thing that you mentioned is that it is essential to have a close personal connection with your musical partners. How do you personally go about cultivating those close relationships? And how do you think the album might have come out differently if the ensemble had actually been composed of strangers when you all walked into the studio together?
Well, a little bit, it depends also on the music, of course. I wouldn't say it's the only way to make good music if you know each other really well and if you are great friends. But to me, it helps a lot, and especially in chamber music, because I believe chamber music and I think duo already is a sort of chamber music. It's a dialogue already, and um, that this kind of music is it's like sharing. It's like sharing opinions. It's sharing statements. It's telling and listening to stories. And if you feel near to the person that you are sharing that music with, then this I think definitely helps if you have a good way of communication. I think you don't need to know each other for long already, because I mean it's just like you meet somebody very at first sight. It's some new person that you didn't know before, and you feel immediately there's a good bridge. There's a good communication between the two people. Then you feel immediately you get along very well. And I think that helps a lot. I can imagine that it doesn't help the music so much if you have a person that you, that you don't feel like really sympathetic, or that you feel, well, maybe it's a different approach in life in general. Then maybe it's more difficult to find a really wonderful result in your music making.
Mhm. I personally, chamber ensembles are my favorite ensembles to be a part of.
Yes.
And my freshman year of college, I had just moved to a new state. I didn't know any of the people in my quartet. And at first, I feel like it was hard for us to learn the music together because we didn't really know each other. We were having such a hard time keeping the tempo together and reading off of each other. And in this 12 movement piece we were learning, the first 4 movements took forever for us to figure out how to play. But then the rest just came so
Yes,
naturally once we had that connection.
perfect. Yeah, that's what I mean. That you found each other like in the process of working the first movements, and you felt there was a good communication between you, and so then the other movements, they went on much easier because you could imagine maybe what your colleagues would sense how to play that, or how they also would, yeah, what is their way of playing, of communicating music. And so that's why it's so difficult also to play with a machine, if you play playback. it's
Mhm.
uh, it's not really music making in the end.
Mhm. For this album, you got to be a part of the birth of new works. That was kind of one of the big parts of the album. What did the collaborative process look like between your group and the composer? And feel free to share a story if you have one in mind.
Yeah, sure. There's this one piece that opens the CD. It's a duo for 2 violins, and it was written for my wife and myself. And my wife is my partner on the CD, or I'm her partner. And our great friend Alexandra Hülshoff, a wonderful cellist, is also our partner on the CD. And this duo we played for the first time in the year 2007. And Burkhard wrote it for us for a performance at a festival. And since that time, we played the piece numerous times. And the repertoire for 2 violins is very limited. There are some very good Baroque pieces. In fact, there's a little bit of classical music, and then there's some strong music in the 20th century. There's a Prokofiev sonata, there's the Isai sonata, there is some music by Hindemith, by Max Reger, and so on. But not as much music as you could really want to have. And so it was wonderful to add this piece to our repertoire, because my wife and I, we play duo violin for many years. And so that was the process of playing and working that piece. And for the first performance, of course, we immediately worked with the composer. And it's quite a special piece because, the word duo um, is written in a special way here. Maybe I show it to the. I hope you can read it. Or
Yeah.
yeah, duo. So it's like divided in 2 German words, du o, which actually means you oh. So this piece is a piece of program music, and it is like a story of 2 people getting to know each other. And actually, it's a sort of portrait of my wife and myself from the very first beginning that we met, and that we had our first meetings, and our first love, and even first fights, also everything in this work. So it's quite programmatic, and that's why it's super interesting. And he does it with really great compositorical means. Maybe we talk about that a little bit later. But so from the very first beginning, this work was very dear to us, and felt very personal. And we worked it with the composer, and practiced it and played it many times. And then now, after 13 years of playing it, we recorded it on the CD.
Wow, that's crazy to me. In 2007, I don't even know if I knew what a clarinet was. I would have been 7 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there are other pieces that I, of course, and we play much longer already. Like, I'm a little bit older than you, of course. Yes. And what is also really nice in this piece, it's not only a piece of music, but it's also a theatrical, a theater sort of piece that you have to walk on stage, you have to run to each other, you have to like go back and turn around and so on. So it's really good to play. I really can recommend it to other violinists very well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for sure there's going to be some violinists listening to this. My colleague Lucy Collins, she is a violinist herself, and chamber music is her specialty. She loves it, and the more active the better. So I will be sure to recommend it to her.
Good. Yes.
So you might have already answered this with the previous question, but what was your favorite piece to play on this album and why?
Well, I like, it's difficult to make a choice, but of course, this piece that I just mentioned is very dear because I play it for so long already. But also the other pieces I'm involved, I like very much, and they are very different. There's this wonderful string trio, which was finished actually just before the recording session. It was still changed. Yeah, it's really super. It was written for that occasion, but just half an hour before the recording session, some bars were still changed, and it's a super, about 6 minutes, super attractive string trio, very much in the minimal music style. So quite, I would say inspired by Philip Glass or Terry Riley, and it's a nice piece, full of energy, and has this motoric rhythm, very nice color, and wonderful balance between the three instruments. It's not easy, of course, to write for string trio. And and it was real fun to play that. Again, string trios is a form of repertoire which is not that, there's not so much repertoire like in the string quartet, of course. The string trios, of course, you have Mozart, the beautiful Divertimento, you have the Beethovens, you have Schönberg, which is fantastic. You have some other things also like Rega, for example. But that's also a wonderful piece that's also fun to play and lies good on the string instruments. So I enjoyed that very much. The other pieces on the CD are duo works for violin and cello. Again, you see here music for a combination that is rather rare, violin cello duo, and with my friend Alexander Hülshoff, whom I played together with for already 25 years maybe. We played this music together, and very virtuosic, and much fun.
How do you feel like your guys' process of working together has changed over those 25 years?
No, maybe no. It's the same. Yes, you meet and you know each other really well, of course. I mean, maybe the longer you play with somebody, maybe the less you have to talk, because you know each other really well, and you know the style, you know the idea, you know the character of playing of your partner. You don't need to make so many words, and it's also very interesting. If you meet new people, then usually you have to verbalize more in the process of practicing, of rehearsing. But if you know somebody really well, you don't need so many words, which can be also nice if you play more and don't have to talk too much. Yeah. but also very interesting sometimes, of course, especially when it comes to teaching also. And if you meet some very interesting new musician that you haven't worked with before, to get many insights and to talk about music can be super interesting. Actually, that's what we are doing now, talking about
Yeah.
music.
So, kind of going a little bit away from the album next, throughout your studies and life as a performer, you have been a part of many different music communities and have become somewhat of an international musician. What are some big musical cultural differences that you've seen throughout your travels that people might not expect if they haven't traveled outside their country before?
Um, well, it's, I mean, we maybe start to talk now about traditions. Actually, I don't believe too much in traditions of several cultural areas, because I believe more in the individual of musicians, and I have met in any different cultural region very different musicians. So I wouldn't say that several musicians are the same because they are from the same cultural region. There are some similarities, maybe, because the educations in different cultural regions are maybe different from others. So I've noticed, for example, that in some countries, like often in the East countries, the technical education of young musicians is excellent, is very good, is often better on the average. That I maybe see that here in the middle of Europe. But this doesn't mean in the end that that this is a big it can be an advantage, of course, but it's a personal thing in the end. We have wonderful musicians from everywhere, and so it's a very difficult question, and one could spend a whole evening about that topic. But I'm really glad to know so many musicians from all different backgrounds that are also different in their approach and in their music making, which makes life especially interesting in music.
For sure. Kind of in that same vein, what advice would you have for young musicians who are looking to take their career or education international?
Well, the most important is the love for the music. That you really want to do that. That's the most important thing, because it's a hard way, certainly. It's a most fulfilling life as a musician if you are able to do the music that you would like to do. And one usually doesn't decide that for oneself, of course. There are many aspects that have to work in an artist's life, that the artist can express the music in a way and has the possibility to express the music that he dreams of or she dreams of, and that is is difficult, and you survive maybe only in that life and in that way if you really love what you do, because it's not easy. The life as a musician is, as we all know, is not a life of only success. You there are many times maybe that we would like to give up, and because some things in your career don't work out as you wished it, or you didn't play the concert as well as you thought you, or as you hoped you will do it, and you prepared a lot for it, or a competition or anything. And maybe you won't have the success that you would have loved as a new step in your way. So the love of the music is so important, that always helps us to stick with our profession and with our life. That is the most important thing. And then, of course, next to love, you need to have, yeah, well, it sounds like an old story, but it's quite true. You need a lot of, well, discipline. The word maybe is not, yeah, well, it's quite a lot of discipline you need. You need to also hard work. You need hard work. There's no question. But yeah, if you love the thing that you do, then you won't maybe consider it as hard work. Maybe today, when I said in the beginning, I was practicing a lot today the new Violin Concerto. This maybe is called work, but I didn't feel it was work, because I was happy to have the time and to have the quiet time to play that, and it was a huge pleasure for me. It was a luxury, actually. Yeah, these are my most important thoughts maybe about that.
Well, thank you so much. Those are all the questions that I have for you today. Thanks for joining me on the show, and I can't wait for everybody to hear your new album.
Thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today for this interview with Mr. Friedemann. It was so awesome to get to talk to him about his new album, Works for Strings. Please go down to the link in the description to check it out on Paladino Music. And be sure to subscribe, like, follow on all accounts, Spotify, and more, so that you can tune in to the next episode of CWC. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.